It's a new year, so once again, I thought I'd go through what my plans are for 2023. The first step is putting everything that I own fiber-wise on the table. I really like going around my apartment and pulling out all my fiber because I find throughout the year it tends to just get hidden. Even though we have a tiny 700 square foot apartment, the yarn kind of gets everywhere. So this way I can see it all in one place and also remember all those forgotten skeins. So this cabinet is where I hide things so that no one else can see them. It's just absolutely stuffed full of bags, full of projects and yarn, more project bags, and then that pink box I think has old needles in it. Last year when I did this video, I did a big cleaning exercise, but I'm gonna spare you that this time and I'll just do a little, the comfy couch, I think it was, the 10-second cleanup. I'll quickly organize it all and then we can chat through it. We're done. So let me take you on a quick little tour. We have the works in progress, the finished objects, felting, swatches, tags, random loose needles, things that I still need to sort that are like more technical, like bits and bobs, needle sets, and then this is my stash yarn with kind of the odds and ends over here. This is all sock yarn, a sweater worth of yarn, lace yarns, fingering yarns, and then this is kind of like my worsted area. I moved all my tools onto the floor, my ball winder and Swift, my blocking mat and pins. This I'm gonna give to a friend, and then my yarn and Notion storage, as well as my books. Well, the sun is setting. I didn't quite anticipate it was going to take me this long to hunt through all my stuff. The fun, interesting things that I found in my yarn supply were some spices. Who would have known? So I'm glad we have lots more cinnamon sticks and cloves. This year I wanted to use a different approach than last year because I don't think last year worked that well. Let me grab my pink box first so I can explain. Last year I picked, I think, around 10 projects from my stash that I wanted to do in 2022. And at the end of the year, I think I'd done less than half of them. Another part of this whole pink box thing was any yarn that I purchased throughout the year had to go into the pink box. So along with the projects that I was planning to do, any purchased yarn had to go in here. And then yarn could only be taken out when I used it in a project. My goal was to have the box empty by the end of the year. So essentially any yarn I buy, I have to use. And I did. In that sense, I did pretty well. I think I only had a couple skeins. Oh, these are them. These are the 2 skeins I bought last year that I didn't use. I just bought these incorrectly for a project that they didn't work with, so I'm okay with that. To me, this seems like, if this is the extra yarn that I added this year to my stash, that's pretty good. So moving forward, I'm gonna be a little less, I can't think of the right word. So my vocabulary has left me along with the losing light. But basically this year I want to be a little less like definitive. Basically what I'm trying to say is I don't want to set ideas for what I'm going to knit at the beginning of the year, throughout the year, because that clearly doesn't work and it's a little less fun. I do still love the idea of any yarn that I purchase I have to use, actually have a project intended for it. So I'm going to keep that up. Same idea with this pink box. I'm actually going to pick a couple projects. You'll probably recognize them if you watched my video last year as being some of the same ones that I'm going to put into this box. I still, although my stash has decreased quite a bit, I really would love the idea of having no stash, just so that I'm completely flexible to do whatever I want. All right, let's start filling this sucker up. I'm just going to pull these off the top of my head as things that I know that I want to do. So the first one being the Guthrie sweater by Caitlin Hunter. I have some beautiful spin cycle and some navy blue La Bien Amie. Then I would like to do these Quivic. So I actually found a pattern for mitts that would work with this single ball of Quivic lace weight wool. Can't remember the name of that, but I'll attach it above. Oh, Goose. Goose was eating some of my, Goose was eating some of my mohair. I hope she's okay. To be honest, I don't really love the color of this, so she could eat it. I just don't want her to get sick. You know, looking at the rest of my stash, I'm not really too sure what else I want to do. Oh, I wanted to do a baby bonnet in this blue for my niece, because their baby is due in a couple months. And then I would like to do some socks. Like I have, I think, 8 or something skeins of sock yarn. So I would really love to do these MudPunch socks, and then I would love to do a pair of socks for my husband as well, which I think I'm gonna do in the Fidley Dyeworks BFL, also a BC company, and I'll probably do it in this color yarn. Well, I think the sun is actually now dipped behind a building, so I'm gonna have to continue this tomorrow. I think that's all the yarn I'm gonna put in my box, and tomorrow I'll just chat about my yarn journal, and also some interesting information about this little skein. Good morning. So lucky me, it's another beautiful day in Vancouver. And today now I want to chat about the other half, which is my yarn journal. I did realize though that I didn't touch on some of the projects that I'd like to knit that I don't yet have the yarn for. And I think the theme for me moving forward in 2023 is I'd like to do sock construction, different heels, sweater construction. So like a saddle shoulder sweater, a round yoke sweater, a set in sleeve sweater, just all different kinds of, basically I think it's mainly like upper shoulder construction. And then lastly is get more information or learn more about breed specific yarns. I knit last year I knit with BFL for the first time. I'd kind of only really known about merino and then, you know, cashmere, but I'm not gonna knit with cashmere. So the BFL, I loved it. It was shiny, it was glossy, it was wonderful. So that was what my little hint about this is. I've signed up for a Breed of the Month program with Way Homestead it's a Canadian farm in Manitoba, which is just outside of, it's in Winnipeg, which is in Manitoba. And this is the first one that arrived. So every month I'm going to get a skein of spun yarn. It's undyed in a breed specific. So this first month was Corriedale. And I ended up knitting a swatch last night. I'm also trying to learn, right now I throw, which I think is English style. And I wanna learn how to pick, which I think is continental. So I knit this swatch doing that, and I had to do the pearls. And it's honestly, my tension is not great. My tension is not even, it's bad. It's just bad. So that's something else I want to do in the new year. Okay, so speaking of the projects that I don't have the yarn for that I'm excited about. So the saddle shoulder sweater, I noticed Ozetta has a pattern that looks quite beautiful. So that is one of them, as well as the Halibut sweater by Caitlin Hunter, and I think it's the Wilderness sweater by Linka Neumann. So I'd love to do a Lopi sweater this year. It's a very economical yarn, very rustic. It's Icelandic wool. And I think that's kind of the three. All three of those sweaters, I have yarn at the yarn store that I work for that I really want to purchase, but I'm making myself finish my current projects first before I can go and buy more wool. The other thing that I didn't mention, is the Oslo hat, which is by PetiteKnit, and I just would love to try that construction. I'd like to do the Mohair one. And if you see me looking down, it's because part of my yarn journal actually has a page on the patterns that I'm excited about. Oh, how could I forget? I also want to do the Sandnes Garn, some patterns from this book, mainly actually the Guernsey Genzer, which is a paneled sweater with a lot of texture to it, and it looks gorgeous. First, I'll chat about the notebook itself. It is an Oasis notebook. I ended up purchasing this at the notebook store on campus. The thing I like about it is the size. So it's kind of, you know, I'd say a medium-sized notebook. I'm hoping I'm doing 1 page per project, and I think that's plenty. Also, it actually has soft grid lines. So I will be drawing lines and things, and then you can follow them to make it look a little bit straighter. The first thing that I'm tracking in this is my stash. And as you can see already, there's some lines. Please don't judge my writing. I know that I'm not a nice writer. In fact, this journal, I am not focusing at all on the way that it looks. It is not cute. It's not pretty. It's just practical. And what I want to do is first the stash. So a big thing that I kind of talked about last year is I really want to decrease my stash. And what I'm doing is just really making myself aware of what's in it. So every month I'm going to, by size, I'm going to actually count out what yarns that I have. And you can see here, the one thing that I did do is I separated fingering from sock fingering. Just for me, they're not the same. Sock fingering, that's what I'm going to use for socks, and the other fingering I'll use for like baby sweaters or hats or just, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then after I've done that, I also have some sections on any yarns that I've added. So this month I've already added quite a bit of yarn, and that is the Shetland and the BFL. This BFL is actually from a project that I've decided to abandon. So yarns get removed from my stash as soon as I kind of cast on a project, and then they get added either by purchasing or deciding to not complete a project. For yarns removed, this yarn got removed because I actually started this Cumulus blouse, and that's why it got removed. And here you can see I also have my current works in progress and their status. So I have any projects, so a little embarrassing, but I've got 6 works in progress. As you can see, I have finished 1. And then these other 3, I'm just not quite sure if I'm gonna be able to finish them this month. And I'm doing a page per month. And as you can see, I've only really written out to February. And that's just because I'm anticipating as I go through this, I'm going to want to slowly adjust. I can't predict how I'm gonna wanna keep track of my stash in December when it's January. Because, you know, as you use things, you tend to find better solutions for them. We then get into a page where I have my pattern wish list. So these are some patterns that I'm interested in. Then I have my list of mending and finishing touches. So as things come up throughout the year, I'm going to write them down. As you can see, I already have quite a few here. Some of them really have to do with weaving in the ends. I want to pull apart a couple projects. I have some repair work I need to do. And then I have some buttons that I need to sew on, things like that. I want to keep track of those. Then I have my podcast, so I'm doing 1 per month. So I just have any notes that I want to think about for that podcast. So I have 12 pages of that because I have 12 months of that. And then I get into the actual projects. So I'm going to flip through here and you can see the evolution even as I just wrote out my projects for January. So the big thing is like this, the title, so who knits the project and who the designer was, and I'm going to do a page per project. Then I like to include the size, the wool, and then the color number, and then any notes that I have. So you can see just the format of it is going to change slightly. I started kind of putting a designated spot for the size, for the yarn, and then I realized, you know what, I actually want to keep track of when I start the project and when I finish it. So, and then lastly, I got to my last one, which is this is the one I like the most, just enough space. I have space for the yarn, for the start date, and for the end date. So I'm gonna do 1 page per project, and that is it. We'll see what other kind of bits and bobs. I kind of want to make this journal just completely full of only knitting. And I might be able to fit another year's worth of knitting in here, probably, seeing as it's over 100 pages, and I typically do about 20 projects a year. Well, I think I've only actually ever done 10 projects a year, but this year I'm gonna do 20, so yeah. Anyways, I hope maybe that was helpful for you to try to figure out how you want to organize your new year, if you even want to organize your new year. Totally up to you. Everyone likes to keep track of things in varying amounts of detail, so this is the amount that so far I think is going to work for me. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have an awesome day.